watching Tim Topham TV, the Piano Teaching Podcast, episode 33. Hi everyone, and thanks for watching this episode of Tim Topham TV, when we'll be kicking off Group Teaching Month with a chat with Paul Myatt and Gillian Erskine about how group teaching has transformed the way they teach and helped them build a multi-studio piano teaching business all around the world. Just before we start, I wanted to mention that if you listen to this podcast on the podcast app on iPhone or iPad, you may have been having some trouble downloading recent episodes. Look, I'm not 100% sure why this is happening, and I'm working on it. In the meantime, if you need to download episodes, which is great if you want to listen to things offline, if you're in a plane or you travel through tunnels a lot or something like that, you don't get reception, or you want to save on your data, totally understand, then I recommend getting an app called Overcast. It's a free app for iPhone and iPad. It's actually a pretty good podcast player. Just use that one instead. You can search for Tim Topham when you're in there, and the downloads work 100% through that. So apologies for that issue. I'm not sure what's causing it, but that's the best solution at the moment. Now, make sure you stay tuned right to the end of this podcast, because I've got a special announcement for you guys, my podcast viewers, in regard to the Inner Circle, which is due for launch in just a week's time or thereabouts. So stay tuned to the end and I'll let you know about that. Now, before we get started with today's interview, I want to thank today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Group Lessons 101 by upbeat piano teachers Tracy Selly and Sarah Campbell, who have created an awesome new series of webinars all about group teaching, activities, and summer camps. Watch as some of the most experienced teachers give away all their secrets to running the best group activities and lessons, and find out how you can get started today. This is just perfect for this month on the blog. The course includes PDFs, worksheets, bonus materials, and links to teaching videos so that you can watch these group classes and games and activities in action. To find out more and get 10% off access today, head to timtopham.com/upbeat. So my guests today are Paul Myatt and Gillian Erskine, are founding directors of the Forte School of Music, and they started this 22 years ago back in 1994. Forte has over 4,000 students in Australia and is the largest music school network of its kind. And they also have places in other countries as well. Gillian started piano and has an LTCL in piano teaching. She has taught many students from little ones to teens. Gillian has 2 children who have been crash test dummies for all the new Forte courses since they were born. Her eldest son, 16-year-old Fraser, is currently working on grade 8 piano and trumpet, and 14-year-old Mitchell is working on grade 5 piano and flute. Musical family. Both boys are also high achievers at school, and both exceptional language students. And Gillian believes this is due to having started music lessons when they were just 6 months of age. Paul studied music and education at university focusing on French horn. After uni, he worked at a private instrumental teacher, performer, and pianist. In 1989, he bought a private music school and started working with Gillian in 1993 towards creating Forte. Currently, Paul resides in Sydney in Australia and owns the Forte School in DY, where he teaches around 120 students in a 13-hour week. So it was 120 students in 13 hours. You're going to find out how in a moment. He sings with the Sydney Symphony Chorus and is currently working on his A+A in classical voice. He's a regular blogger on my site here. You may have read his articles before. They are fantastic and full of great ideas. And he often writes about the importance of professional development and ongoing learning for teachers. Gillian and Paul have also written the Easy Learn Piano and Theory, published by Alfred Publishing, which can be found in most music shops around Australia. Now, there's also a free download today. Paul has been very kind to offer us, for those of you who teach piano for leisure exam students in Australia, he's actually put together some technical worksheets downloads for grades 1 to 3. They're kind of a trial. He's starting to do these for all grades, but he's been really kind to just give them away to anyone who wants them. You can download them from the show notes, which will be at timtopham.com/episode 33. So without any further chat from me, let's get stuck into the interview, and I'll see you afterwards for that little update on the Inner Circle. Well, Paul and Gillian, welcome to Tim Topham TV. Great to have you on the show.
Great to be here.
Now, look, this is the first podcast of my group, class, and lab kind of teaching month. As you know, there's been a lot of interest on the blog about group teaching and the sort of a change it can make to teachers' studios. So it is so good to have you guys on here, because not only have you gone down the group teaching path, you've taken that another whole step further, and you've created what people would probably call an academy, I guess. And you've even gone a step further than that. So you haven't just got one studio with multiple teachers, you've got multiple studios with multiple teachers, and you've gone internationally around the world. So I can't wait to kind of delve into your experience and get some good ideas from you. But perhaps to start with, can you give us some quick background to your teaching experience that led you to this path? Because, I mean, quite often most teachers are pretty happy just doing their thing in their studio with their students. Where did the kind of tangent come that took you down this path together? So I might start with perhaps Gillian.
Well, when I first started teaching, I, of course, taught one-on-one, because that's how I grew up. And pretty soon on, I was thinking, gosh, there's got to be a better way. And so I used to actually try and go to, I worked for a music dealer, and I used to volunteer to go and get the music orders, because I was thinking there must be some great books out there. I'll go and find something better than what I'm using. And, I would search and didn't find anything. Then through that time, the dealer that I worked for was a Yamaha dealer, and I became exposed to Yamaha music education. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow. This is how music should be taught. Creating musicians, this is what I want to do. And so I then still taught privately, and taught a couple of days a week, 1 or 2 days a week, for a Yamaha school, teaching the groups. So I had a really great, I got out of the house and went to a music school, which was really great, and taught there. And then the more I did it, the more I loved it. And the more I found it was exciting, and I loved it as much as the kids loved it. And so then I thought, I really want to do this all the time. So then I bought a Yamaha music school, and then from there on in, the things just led on from one thing to another. And then in '94, Paul and I were founders for Forte.
Right. So that's interesting. I haven't yet interviewed anyone about the Yamaha method, but I'm keen to. So you can give us a quick little bit of a background on that, because I've heard about it, but I don't know a huge amount about it. Without going into too much detail, is it all group teaching that the Yamaha does?
Well, they'll have a mixture of group and private, but essentially, yes. The Yamaha music education is about teaching the children in a group situation. But it's not really about group. What it is about is actually developing musicians.
Okay.
And developing the kind of skills that skill set musicians need, with the oral, the keyboard harmony, improvising, composing, and ensemble playing skills. Because after all, music is at its greatest many times is done as a collective. And all too often, such a shame that pianists miss out on it. Pianists usually play one-on-one, and I think all music teachers have had that experience where you have a child who's learning private with another child's learning private, you put them together to play a duet, and they're like, because it's like, it'd be okay if he didn't play. I know my bit. But they're not used to being the sympathetic musicians. They're not used to listening, following the music score, and playing their own part at the time. It's that comprehensive putting it all together, And I was going to say,
I'm interested to come back to some of those ideas, but we might just pop across to Paul and get his little background and how he came to the group kind of teaching method, and meeting you perhaps as well.
Sure. I was a organ player. I went to a church school. I used to play the organ at church every Sunday morning. I feel sorry for my mother sometimes. She had to get up at 6:30 every Sunday morning to drive me to school to play the organ. So I had learnt, I'd learnt at Yamaha when I was a kid, learnt organ, and learnt pipe organ. And when I was about 14 or 15, I started playing piano. And then when I was at university and I had a university job playing in a bar. Working in a bar and a restaurant. And they went, our pianist is on holidays. Can you take over? And I went, sure. And then got a job playing the piano. And then sort of got into, and I was at uni studying French horn because I'd done lots of band stuff, things like that. And then in 1989, I was playing the piano and I bought a Yamaha music school because I always wanted to work in music. And and funnily enough, I'd actually worked with Gillian's husband, who was in 1986. We were both teaching at the same high school, teaching instrumental music. And I then met Gillian after we started working together at Yamaha. And
we dropped by into David Jones when you were playing the piano at David Jones, remember?
That's right. So that was a very long time ago.
So David Jones, one of our big department stores over here, if you're not an Australian.
Exactly.
What a classy place to meet. That's fantastic.
And so I was, and I remember because, I was 21 when I bought this music school. I was so lucky to have, my father had shown us how to save money and stuff, and I'd actually gone into, business and bought this music school, and it was, but I was absolutely skint, and one of the teachers was hadn't turned up for work, and I'm thinking, I can't afford to have all these kids not have a lesson. So that's how I started teaching group, because I thought I've been listening to them and do it for the last 6 months. I can do this. So I went in and did it, and then thought, oh, wow, this is fantastic fun. And then I did the training, and the woman that trained me, I remember getting my first video of me, and you look at yourself once you've video of your own teaching, you go, oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And she came back 3 months later and I'd improved enormously. And then she decided that I was going to teach her children. So it was sort of started this whole process off of teaching. And one of the things that I'd found because I was the Yamaha teacher as well, is that Australian kids didn't really operate the same as Japanese kids. We found that the courses, whilst they're amazing, musically, they didn't really suit our kids. And also, we used to have, this is back in the early 90s, we used to have, because we would only take children when they were 4 or 5 into the courses. And we used to have people ring up saying, oh, he's 3.5, he's nearly 4. And really, he was 2 years and 9 months. And they tried to do that because they'd heard how much fun it was, and they really wanted to come because they had friends who were learning. And back in those days, I used to teach about 170 kids a week in class. I had, I was working teaching contact hours, about 20 hours a week, and I had a fabulous relationship with the AMEB. I used to, in Queensland, this is when I was in Queensland, I used to ring up the AMEB and say, oh, I've got 27 kids doing grade 2. Can you send an examiner out?
Yeah. And
that was sort of what it was like. And then when we started Forte, we really wanted to make sure that all of our courses were aligned with an AMEB, like a examination, a registered examination syllabus.
Yep. So the AMEB, for those listening, Australian Music Examination Board. So that's one of the big boards in Australia.
But like ABRSM?
Yeah. Yes, exactly, yeah. But you're saying you were trying to align it to an exam.
Yeah.
Parents wanted that too. They wanted they wanted to be aligned to an exam system. And I think back onto the point earlier that Paul was saying that they wanted to send their little ones. That was the beginning of us writing a course. I wrote a course called Music is Fun. We still have that course, Music is Fun, running for our 3.5 to 4.5-year-olds. It's been, improved. And then now we've gone, well, not now so much. About 2004, we launched Jungle Music for babies. Right.
6 months to 3.5. And we actually won an Australian-made award for it as well, so we're pretty happy about that. So it's really.
And now we've got the children. Well, not just now, but we've had them coming through from babies right through to tots, right through our Friends program, into our Music is Fun program, and into our Junior Keys program, which is which was where we used to start.
Yeah.
And those children, oh my goodness, they're just amazing.
Yeah. Well, I've seen some of the videos, and I know Paul's shared links. I think you've shared links to some of them in the blogs you've written, and they're outstanding. They really are. Their musicality comes through, and their ability to sort of sing while they play, and all this kind of stuff. I think it's just tremendous. Yeah. So you're definitely doing something right, you guys.
Thank you.
I'm interested that both of you started in Yamaha. I assume you had training in Yamaha. Why didn't you just stay as a Yamaha teacher? Because I assume lots of people do that too. What made you go, no, I'm going to rewrite from the scratch my own version of this?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there came to a point in the early 90s where there was a reevaluation point where we had to either decide to stay in Yamaha or so there's just a point at which Yamaha put us all to, and a number of us went, we love this, but there's just some things that that could be better about it for our market. And also, I absolutely see how it's brilliant in Japan, and I went to Japan with Yamaha, and it is. But we just felt there were some things that didn't quite suit us the way we wanted it to do. So we searched the world trying to find something, didn't we, Paul? We went.
Yes, we did. We really did try and search the world. What we also, from my perspective, I'd done a lot of Kadai and ORF training at university, so I was very keen to incorporate that sort of approach into the learning as well. So whilst I suppose from a Yamaha perspective, we brought in the keyboards, but Yamaha wanted us to use electronic organs, which we didn't want to use, and all of our clients or most of our students want to learn piano, so not organ. And so we wanted to have pianos in the classroom or portable keyboards, but we also wanted to use an ORF Schulwerk approach as well as Kadai approach as well as a Delcros approach. So all of those foundation music educators from 100 years ago were saying all the things that we wanted to use, and so we wanted to incorporate their approaches or parts of their approach into our education process as well. So
we also wanted to put some really we felt that as school owners, not only were we teachers, but the educational values of creating musicians, absolutely wanted to do that 100%. And as school owners, we wanted to be able to create a quality program that could be delivered as well from one teacher to another teacher to another teacher. So that meant that we needed some video training. We needed some great, really firm resources. We needed lesson plans that were able to be developed that every single parent, every single child, or in every all the classes could actually do the same lesson plan, rather than, and then if a child needed to go from this class on a Tuesday because soccer's on now to a Thursday class, they could.
And it was a different teacher.
Yeah, that's right. And while the personality of the teacher might be slightly different, the class wasn't radically different. They had the same thing. They were lesson 21 was sort of as lesson 21. It was a very similar thing.
Yeah.
So we wanted to have, and we now have people move from Western Australia into Brisbane, and they go from that, and absolutely no hitches.
Yeah, and, I just had a new student from our school in Perth in Joondalup, just transferred into one of my classes 2 weeks ago. They just moved to Sydney. They're actually driving nearly an hour to get to us in Sydney.
Wow.
But they wanted to continue the lessons at Forte because the child was enjoying it.
We've had people say to the husband, I'll go to Perth, but we have to live near Canning Vale School because otherwise I'm not going.
Oh, wow. Goodness me. You guys have definitely captured a part of the market. And that's why I want to kind of find out a little bit more. I was just thinking as you were talking, then I love aspects. I guess in my own teaching, I also like including aspects of some of these other methods. Kadai in particular, ORF. I'm actually interviewing someone about ORF because I want to learn more about that. What does it look like in practice when you say you use these approaches? Without going into massive detail, what are some of the kind of main overview concepts of those approaches, and what do they look like in your studio that perhaps other people wouldn't do?
I suppose with the ORF, the use of percussion, like tuned and untuned percussion instruments, is really important. So we do a lot of work in the early courses on using chimes. So the children will play the songs on chimes, so they'll be playing and singing. And
that's like a glockenspiel kind of.
Yeah, a little set of chimes, just C to C,
yep.
and we'll play them along. And because all of our music is also recorded, so we have accompaniment tracks for every single song, and all the CDs that we have for our courses have a concert speed and a practice speed. The kids can go home and practice along with it, but you can, when you get the music in terms of piano. It has a vertical representation as well as a horizontal representation of pitch. So when you read music, it is a vertical representation of pitch. When you play on a piano, it is a horizontal representation of pitch. So going from, and I'm being a typical teacher, I'm going from right to left, but I'm mirroring.
Yeah.
So I would be mirroring. So it would be C, D, E, F, G, or we use solfege, which is same as Delcros. We use fixed do solfege. Do, re, mi, fa, so. For all the Kadai people, I would say movable do is fantastic as well. But if you're teaching the piano, I think fixed do is better, having done both. And being a French horn player who has to transpose a fifth using fixed do is useless. You have to use movable do. So from perspective of solfege or solfa, that's why we use solfege.
And as a little aside, if no one knows what you've been talking about for the last minute, then well, I'm still learning about it as well. But I'm actually going to be interviewing someone about Kadai, so we're going to talk about exactly that in a few weeks' time too. So
excellent. Yeah. So that's, and also from like a Kadai approach of the singing. So we do lots and lots of singing. So the oral development is absolutely vital, and singing while you play. And then from a Delcros perspective, and I sent one of the videos I sent you, if you'd like to put a link to it, is teaching using movement. So, and the one in particular was a grade 1 piece, exam piece, and using movement and clapping and what have you to learn the music first.
Yeah.
What we find with the example regarding chime bars, if they can do it from a gross motor perspective, and I think this also goes with the Delcros idea, we can get gross motor happening first in the right way, fine motor follows.
Yes, I was wondering if that was the concept of getting off the keyboard. So instead of using fingers, you're learning notes, but you're using your hands.
Well, you're going over it. Yeah, it's about gross motor.
Yeah, it's just adding an extra step of helping this absorb without having to worry about all this and where your wrists are and all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
It makes a lot of sense.
And I think in terms of all the movement that we do, most of the movement has a representation. Well, often it's a cross-lateral thing, particularly where you've got a piano, you've got a lot of cross-lateral stuff going on with that whole vertical. And not only are you doing vertical and horizontal, but you're doing right and left brain coordination, blah, blah, blah. So, and to get the music through their body so that that's a feeling experience first before we get to the piano means that when we do get to the piano, it's right.
Yeah,
they get it.
And
you don't have to spend time drilling at the piano because we've done all those other things. When we get to the piano, just settles in.
Yeah.
Easy. It's fun.
Yeah, it's great.
It's also fun.
Well, I was also going to say, I'm guessing you do a fair bit more creativity and improvising aspects perhaps than others might in their first few months of lessons. Would that be right? Or do you go to reading quite early?
We go to reading. We read. We follow a listen, sing, play, read, write approach. So it's very similar to the approach that Dr. Gordon talked about
music learning theory.
Yes. So we'll obviously listen, but during the listening, it's active listening, so we'll move as well.
Okay.
And we have choreographed every single song in our course book. And so we have them available to all of our teachers so that everyone uses the same choreography. So that helps when children change. But also, most teachers learned in a one-on-one situation. Most piano students learn in a one-on-one situation. So for them to expect them to make up choreography, it's just they wouldn't be able. It's just like you got to know why you're doing it, and you don't do it just because the lesson plan says. You got to know why you're actually doing it and why that is going to be beneficial for the child's learning in the process.
It has to have a point, doesn't it? It has to have a learning
outcome. Yeah.
Well, what is the learning outcome of moving to? I'm assuming you're doing things. You're perhaps like moving your legs as well as your arms in a particular way. Is that right?
Yeah.
What is the point of that?
It could be, like, for example, it could be your legs are doing your left hand, your hands are doing your right hand. So if you can get that into your body when you actually play it, it's a lot easier to do.
So what we've done is taken every single song in our course and we've said, what is the hard thing about this song? What is the one that most of the students stumble on? Okay, let's get a movement in place that actually addresses that.
Right. And you find that's obviously successful?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. And I think a lot of teachers, and myself included to some extent, are a little bit afraid of getting students off the bench and doing something because we haven't learnt that way. What advice would you give to perhaps teachers who are listening who think, actually, yeah, that would be cool if I could get them to move, but I really don't know what to do to start? If they don't have a curriculum or a set choreography, could they do something simple like walk to music, or have you got any tips?
One of the best things that I've seen recently is those rhythm cups.
Oh, yeah. Wendy Stevens. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's an easy thing to do. And the kids don't necessarily, it's still a gross motor. They're not having to move their legs so much, but it's a good step.
Yeah. Yeah.
Particularly in private, because it's a bit, when you've got one-on-one, for a child to get up off us, and that's where the group comes in, because everybody's up together, everyone's up on the floor together, mums are up on the floor together too, come on, let's do it. Yeah. It's fun. Yeah. Whereas if you've got it at home in your own studio and you've got one child there, you say, oh, come on, let's get up. They go, I don't think so.
Yeah.
The other thing you could use is tambourines are fantastic. Tapping a rhythm on a tambourine, having a drum. And they're fun, like just tapping along. And I always find I never have problem with getting kids to sing. But being a male means that some young children don't pitch hear very correctly. So they might sing do, re, mi, but they got do, re, mi, because they can't hear me.
Yeah.
So I get the parent to sing to them, mother, generally the mother, obviously, to sing to them. So that's a good strategy for male teachers as well. If you don't have a way to get the pitch singing, but
we
also
love our parents to come into our classes.
Sorry,
we love the parents there. A lot of private teachers go, "Oh no, parent, stay away." We actually welcome. We want them in.
Yeah. And you use them by the sounds of things. They don't just
absolutely, yeah. Occasionally you'll get a dad come in who's a bit terrified, and we say to the kid, is it Dad's first time today? And she goes, yeah. Oh, we promise not to embarrass him on his first lesson. But one of the things, if you've got children, especially boys, like boys hate singing by themselves. So I get them just to say it because it's just as good as singing. If you say in rhythm like C, D, E, F, G, it's as good as singing C, D, E, F, G. So it's just another way. If you can't get them to sing it, get them to say it, because it's that thing. If you were talking the last podcast I listened to, the person that you had on was talking about practice, and doing practice in many different ways. And when you sing as well as play, it's reinforcing that learning again and again. So it's like the myelination is actually getting stronger.
Well, you've got the multi-sensory approach going on, haven't you? You've got many senses being engaged. The more senses you engage, the more stronger those neural pathways are, the quicker they learn.
Yeah. And unfortunately, piano teaching historically has just focused on the visual, hasn't it? Visual and fine motor.
Yeah.
And not so much a number of these other kind of aspects. So
I know. I was thinking, I was watching your Paula Melville Clark video yesterday, and
she's so good. Love
she
that.
is. Yeah, and with the Delcroze approach. And, you know, I always thought, gosh, you know, we had Orff, we had Kadai, we had Delcroze 100 years, more than 100 years ago, going, you know what, guys, this isn't the best approach, this whole reading thing. And in 100 years, it's still what parents think is the proper way.
Yeah.
And
I still have kids' parents say to me, oh, they're not reading. And I do a whole thing where I go, well, if you do your AMSA, you've got to read approximately 5th or 6th grade standard. And I work it back and go, well, if you're doing preliminary grade, it's something like one of our second or third book that they're supposed to be sight reading ability.
Yep.
So it shows them that the ability to sight read is much further behind the playing ability. And so it's about educating that. And I also find with my students, my older students, and I'll give you a couple of links to put of a couple of my older kids who are playing. They would not read at all. It was like extracting teeth.
Yeah.
Then overnight, because they wanted to learn a song, they miraculously learnt to read. It's like, you know, it was like pulling teeth to get them to read the music. But then miraculously overnight, they would learn something and read it.
Well, that's because you found the catalyst, didn't you? You found the song that they wanted to learn. And that's why I'm so proactive with regard to meet the student where they're at, particularly for teenagers, help them with something they want to learn and you'll have them on side.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I want to go on to a few other questions because I guess the point of the podcast for me is that I'd like to encourage other teachers to consider whether they could go to a group teaching format themselves. So if we picture most of my viewers, I think that would be a fair comment, are probably teaching privately and one-on-one, I should say. How can they start the process of moving to a group situation, do you think? If you can kind of roll back the clock, however long ago it was that you've both started, where would you actually say to someone who wants to start, here's how you could go about it. Here's the first few steps.
Yep. I would say the first thing is to start small get a second instrument and try getting the teachers to maybe, if you had 2 30-minute lessons, have the child on their own for, say, 20 minutes, then the children come together for 20 minutes and have the other child on their own for 20 minutes. So as a good starting practice.
That's a great suggestion.
Obviously, you need to have that same standard. But the
other thing, can I just interrupt there? The other thing that you could do, because even if you go a step back, having a second instrument in your studio where you are actually accompanying the students so that it becomes much more. I'm doing this with one of my sons now. Unfortunately, we stopped the class. We stopped class because for a whole lot of reasons, me getting too busy. And I started last year. I was teaching him one-on-one privately. Nearly did us both in. So,
how old's your son?
He's 14 now. Okay. Just turned 14. So then we started doing grade 5 this year. We did grade 4 last year. We started doing grade 5. And I started teaching him a piece, Everybody's Blues, which I had taught my other son, my eldest son, who's 16, with his class. And then I thought, gosh, this was so much fun when we taught this in class. And I thought, I'll just do this the same way. So I got on the other piano and said, all right, you're going to play da, da, chord 1. There's this a little thing. All right, you play that. And where does it all turn up? And we identified all the spots that turned up. Okay, I'm playing. You fit that in when it comes up to it. So it's just a different way of thinking. And you'll see some sort of perhaps what Paul does as well. But so I played the piece and he put the snatches in when they turned up. And because we teach patterns, the pattern, the music, where it turns up. So the kids also our students learn to memorize very easily because they understand it from a chordal pattern, from exactly what's happening in it. But if you're actually teaching from not here's the dot, let's start it. Let's do the right hand all the way through. Let's do the left hand all the way through. No. Teach the pattern. And you're ensemble teaching because you're playing and they're playing with you. And then that's actually part of the skill of being a good class teacher is the ensemble stuff. Sympathetically being able to watch that, let them play and you're playing with them. And if you have to, sometimes you fasten up if they're going a little bit faster just to keep it together. Gradually, of course, you're going to try and get them to track into a consistent speed.
Yep.
So, but having the two instruments in the lesson.
Yeah, another great sort of introductory step. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love. I mean, every time I start playing on a second piano or a keyboard, kids just they love it.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And they love learning duets. Even if at the first they're a bit or they don't quite get it working in together. Once they have got it, the eyes open and it's so much fun. And getting two. So I like getting. Even though I teach one-on-one, getting two kids of the same year level, there's often some friends at school, to learn a two-piano thing together.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in their lessons, we work on it, and then we start putting it together. It's great fun. I guess that's a very basic kind of group teaching concept.
Yep.
Not quite where you've got to, but... and so if teachers start doing that, I guess they can try it out, see how it feels to have two students.
Yeah.
Let's say they do that kind of crossover thing that Paul was talking about. And then they can reanalyze it and say whether they should do more.
Yeah, the other thing they could do is something like what I did when I first started, which was if they actually do want to get the skill of being able to teach 8 children in a class, and we are not talking headphone, stick everyone on headphones, come around and visit them for 1 minute.
I want to come back to that later on.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we're talking, but if they do want to do that, there's, they could go and work in a Forte school or a Yamaha music school or what have you, one day a week and gain and learn those skills. And it's fun. You get out of the house, you get to learn some new skills and
meet new people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be at home, and it doesn't have to be at your place. I think from a council perspective, you probably couldn't have 6 kids turning up every hour on the hour at home because everyone will start complaining in the street that their car parks aren't there.
So, certainly you would, if you're in Sydney, you'd have a problem.
Absolutely.
That's another option.
Yeah. Paul, you wrote a fantastic article on my blog. It was very popular back in November. It was called 5 Secret Ingredients to Successful Group Piano Teaching, and I'll make sure there's a link to that in the show notes. Got a lot of great feedback about it, and I want to pick up on that headphones thing because in that article you talked about headphones, and Gillian, you've just mentioned it again. So I imagine quite a few people, if they aren't familiar with the group teaching thing, would picture 8 students in a lab all with headphones and the teacher going around individually to them. So why isn't that the approach to take?
Because if you have 8 students with headphones on, then you are teaching 8 different private lessons at one time.
Not possible.
That's group teaching, but it's not class teaching.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a difference. Yeah. See, in a class, everyone is hearing and listening together. In a group, they've all got headphones on. So that's like each child's getting a 5 or 10 minute lesson. If they're there's 5 kids coming for an hour, each child supposedly will get 6 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't think that's value for money for anyone.
Yep.
And I think, I know we get lots and lots of people in our music schools who have gone to those sorts of teachers in schools that they take, 8 keyboards into a school and have 8 kids, and parents pay $10 a lesson. You get what you pay for, and parents come in and say, oh, he's been learning for a year and we'd like him to go into one of your classes. And I have an assessment process that I go through if a child's learnt somewhere else, and they bring in a book, a plastic folder full of photocopies. No one's ever bought a book, which is terrible because it just devalues what music is worth. Stick it under the photocopy, it's terrible. And they can't play. They don't even know where middle C is. They have no keyboard geography. They can't play. All of the notes are written in the music.
Oh yeah.
They write C.
And they were probably written on the piano as well.
Yeah, probably written on the piano as well.
Yeah.
And and you go, well, we'll have to put you in book in book 1, and take
I think the greater I think the greater tragedy of this is these are the ones that have actually where the parents have thought, oh, gee, maybe they've either heard about Paul or whatever, and they've thought, oh, I do want my child to learn. Maybe there is another way that they could learn successfully. There must be droves of people where the parents enroll them for these sorts of programs. The child has lost interest pretty quick, and they go, oh, well, we did music. He wasn't any good at that. And then move on to soccer. Yeah. And what a shame, what a shame. We're losing children to music, or children won't have that opportunity to become a musician.
Engaged in music.
Yeah, because they were in a situation that just kind of didn't really set them up for success.
Yep.
Yep. Well, I hope I'm not offending anybody.
No, I mean, we all, we can picture what you're talking about for sure. I guess my next question, and perhaps I should have asked this before when we were talking about how to get started and some of those ideas, I imagine the next kind of question is, what do you do when it comes to teaching? Let's say you started with 2 people in your studio for a bit of a crossover period. Is there a curriculum, do you sell yours as a separate thing, or is it only part of your business, or are there other curricula out there that teachers could use if they want to try this? Because my experience with my readers is that they do like, at least to start with, step by step, here's how to do this new thing you've never done before.
There are lots and lots of different curriculums available. You can use just about anything that you like. The challenge is working out how to do it that's an effective way, and you've got to practice.
Yeah.
You need to do some professional development. I would highly recommend the Orff Schulwerk Levels courses as a great start for anyone. They're not piano related, but you can transpose the skills you learn in those, and I'm sure that the person that you're interviewing from Orff, so I've done all Orff Levels courses, we'll talk about them. All those levels will be useful for your own, but you've got to transfer the skills from percussion instruments or tuned percussion over to piano. Sure. It's easy, and it's not difficult to do. But you've got to think about it. It's a challenge. But you've got to practice. Like you've got to practice before because there's nothing worse than being a piano teacher and have, 2 or 3 kids in front of you and you're fumbling through something, because you've got to make it musical for them.
Yeah.
So
it's different. It takes preparation too.
Absolutely. It does. And planning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to plan your lessons. You've got to put a little thought into what you're going to do. You also, even for our forte teachers, they have to know that music so well that they are playing and looking at the students. They are they have to be able to do that, sing and play, look at the students, because you've got to know what they're up to. They're struggling with that. Oh, yeah, they can do that really well. I better give them another challenge. Because you've got to be managing the various levels in the class. Not everyone's going to be a sausage cutter. Not everyone's going to be exactly the same. Some kids are going to be slower. Some kids are going to be in the middle doing it right. And some kids are going to need a challenge. And so it's about knowing. You can't just sit there and look at your music and let them do what they want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to be.
One of the big things about Forte is that, one of our big things is teach the children, not the lesson plan. So we drill that into our teachers that this is just a plan, but if something changes, so if you've got a child who can do more, get them to do more.
Yep.
The other thing about in a class is I would involve the parents because when you've got the parents, they can be the learning partner with the child. So there's a number of reasons for involving the parents. One, the parents actually know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because, have you ever asked a 9-year-old, what did you do at school today? Nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
What did you do in your music lesson? Played a few songs.
Yeah.
Got no idea.
Yeah.
So you've got the parent in there to help. The other thing is that I move the children around from parent to parent. So, because you'll get some parents who are, they'll be on their mobile phone on Facebook or what have you during the lesson, and then you'll have the really diligent parents who really help their kids, and then you'll have the ones, the ones in between. It's amazing how parents will change their attitude when they've got to look after someone else's child. But not only that, the children are better for another parent.
Yeah.
So, like kids, they can be repulsive to their own parents, but they'll be perfect for the next parent.
Yep.
So that involving the parents is one of the most crucial things. And of course, which comes back to make sure you know what you're doing, because there's nothing worse than having the parents in the room and you're doing it and
fumbling around with
I don't know how to play it and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why it takes preparation to do it. And it doesn't matter what course you use. You can use an Alfred's course or a Piano Adventures or anything, or teach Amy B exams or Royal Schools or Trinity College, whatever, exams in a class. You have to prepare how you're going to teach it.
Yep. And I think, just so people aren't overwhelmed too, it's, as you say, I think the first thing you said was start small. You guys have been doing this for 20 odd years. You're, at the top of your game. You can teach a classroom of 8, probably more kids at once, and have success. When teachers are just starting, and I wouldn't do it. There's no way I would know what to do with a group of 8 kids in a class. I would want to start small, just a couple, 2, 3, or whatever it is, to get started. And I think that's a great way to approach it. So let's talk about income, because this is potentially a huge factor. Because when you have obviously one person in a class, your income is set by the hour on that one person. If you then suddenly have 8, you've got something completely different. And Paul, I know you talked a bit about this in your article, but can you give us an overview, either of you guys, about the impact that teaching groups can have on your income as a piano teacher?
Sure. I think we charge $37.95 for a private lesson, and we charge $24.95 for a class lesson.
Just half an hour?
Yep. 45 minutes for class,
45,
30 minutes for the private. So the fee, we multiply that by 8, it's nearly $200 for 45 minutes versus $37.95 for 30. So that's what, 78.
Yeah.
But there's costs as well. You've got to make sure that you've got good quality instruments, that they're well maintained. You've got to, generally, you'll have to have commercial premises, if it's in Australia or in a hot climate, it's got to be air conditioned. Yeah. So you're going to have other expenses on that. So it's it's not just
cash in your pocket.
Exactly. Yeah. But I can do, I teach about 120 students a week now. So you can...
In how many hours, Paul?
About 12 and a half.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's... it's a huge difference to what most piano teachers who are slogging away one-on-one, they would listen to that and go, wow, that is unbelievable. But as you say, there's probably significant upfront costs.
There are. And you can mitigate them through, loans and renting instruments and things like that. So it's other...
And one of the other things is that you need to, if you can teach 120 students a week, or 150 students a week, or whatever, you've got to get the 150 students.
Yes.
So it's about marketing and being able to put the right kind of levels of advertising and what have you in behind it, so that you've got the students to support your business as well, and the cost structures that you put in and things. So.
Yep. Yeah, it's turning it into a business, much more of a business focus, I guess.
It is, and
I mean, we all should be focused on our business because we're all business people in running studios. But this is another step up, isn't it?
Oh yes, I was thinking about that before we overnight, and I was thinking that is right. If you are going to be wanting to do group teaching like Paul does it, if you've got 120 students and what have you, it does become a business. And a lot of people think, business is money making and graving. That's a nasty thing. Yeah. Actually, all of our school owners are so excited by the difference we make in people's lives, because when they come to, not only do they learn to be musicians, the improvement in self-esteem, they have to get up every couple of weeks and they're playing their little solo piece for everybody else in the class. That ability to present, we do that. In fact, the little ones, even in jungle music, go and do a little solo thing, just a little. It starts small, baby steps, and we move it up. The confidence that our students gain from doing things like that, and the difference that then makes in their lives at school and what have you, it's just so exciting. And that's actually the thing that we all love, and that we are creating these amazing musicians and what have you. Yes, it is a bonus that it is a business, and yes, it is a bonus that it can be a great business and a profitable business.
The thing I would add,
and have so much fun doing it.
well, the one thing I'd add to that is that when also acknowledging that I had a mum just this week come up to me and said, "Oh, my son's a prefect in year 2. Who has prefects in year 2 at school?"
Never heard of that.
And I went, "Oh, that's great." And she went, "Yeah, but it's because of you." And I went, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, Toby's been learning here since he was 3, and he was the shyest kid in the world. And it's because every couple of weeks, he has to get up and play in front of the class or sing in front of the class or do something in front of the class that he's built up this great confidence. He's still not an outgoing child, but he's confident." And so that mum, is telling all her friends about what the experience that she's had about through learning music. So it's not about the actual piano playing. He plays okay, and he's sort of working on preliminary grade standard. He's in year 2 at school. He loves it. He's in a class of 8. They run in every week. They queue at the door to get in, and they won't let the other class get out before you come in. But they like that I make them say please and thank you. They like that they get rewarded if they do 6 or 7 days practice. They like that they get to play with their friends. And so all of that means that parents actually talk to each other. And that's why in my school, our referral rate is something like 35% of our inquiries come from referrals.
Yeah.
And that's where the marketing of your own business in music education, and that's, it doesn't matter whether you're a private music teacher just teaching one-on-one in your home or you're in a 4-day music school, it is a business. And you need to get referral business if you want to be successful.
Yep.
I think another point that Paul just touched on there, where the kids, and they are, I've been down to DY, and they are waiting outside, and they can't wait to get in. And one of the things that, as a private teacher, I remember back then, I used to think, oh my goodness, I spent 90% of the time trying to motivate you to practice from one week to the next. And that's what's so wonderful about the classes. The kids, it's sort of a little bit of, it's not really competition. But there is an underlying thing about they all want to be able to do it, I guess. They have to have the hard talk. Now, come on, we've got to do this, and you've got to practice from one week to the next. We don't do that. They just, the classes progress on every week. In fact, we've even measured it. Sometimes we have, there's still a perception out there, in some places, that perhaps private lessons are much better than private class lessons. We've actually charted it where children have left class for one reason or another and gone to a private, still in our school. The classes have just continued to move on. 6 months down the track, they go, oh, look, I think we want to come back to the class. Sorry, you can't, because they've gone on so much further than what you've gone. And I think there is that constant motivation. The class is always moving on, bringing along with it. There's a sort of a bit of a steam train effect, I guess, where children are still just keeping up with it. Even
they're playing regularly.
They're
playing regularly. They're performing to the group. I guess that that keeps you motivated, doesn't it?
That's right.
And in front of your parents.
I've got to play that in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, and they have just like a reading chart at school. I have little charts in my classroom of all the concert pieces they've got to do, so they get stickers next to their name when they do their solo. So they know, and you can see the kids who. And the parents know. Oh, we got to put a bit of practice in.
Yeah, that's right. Because when you have a private lesson and the child says, "Oh, I didn't get any time to practice this week," oh, it's okay, and you pick it up and you do a bit of a practice lesson, I guess, with them, and then next week, oh, well, I had swimming carnival and I had this and I had that and I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that, and then doesn't. Whereas with the class, and so the progress sort of. They can bottom out for a while, and then it's hard yakka to try and get the momentum happening in a class. I mean, as I said, it is, oh my goodness, I've got to play that concert piece next week. And sometimes, you'll get someone and I'll say, look, I can't do that concert piece. That's okay. How about next week? Oh, yes. They still get there.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they still progress. And there's a natural momentum that is caused, and there's a natural competition. I don't like the word competition because they're not trying to compete against each other, but there's just that natural energy.
It's a momentum.
Momentum.
So we talked about quite a lot of the benefits. Are there any negatives? I'm thinking perhaps for, let's say you've got a class of grade 2-ish level exam students. Can you keep a track on their technique and when you've got 8 of them in a class?
It's really, really difficult, and that's why all my kids who are doing above grade 1 are doing private lessons as well.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, does this kind of work up to a particular level?
I would do, when you play sport, the better you get at it, the more practices, or I was going to say rehearsals, but the more you go and do it, the more
training
sessions. Yes, that's what I was looking for, that you do. So, but with music teaching, we never ever increase the amount of time or the practices. So I like to do a class lesson and then a private lesson one-on-one once a fortnight. I never teach any one-on-one lessons myself, but I employ teachers to do that for me.
Right.
And they work on technique. That's the goal. They really have to work on the technique.
So the class teacher's in control of their curriculum. All right, we're doing this and doing that. Private teacher does the detail. Can you sort him out on the scale? I noticed that in G minor has got a problem with that, or what have you. Some of the fingerings, and so the private teacher's there to look after detail. And sometimes in the early stages, it's 20-minute private.
Right.
So with the exam students, I agree with Paul. I always had, my eldest son did grade 6. In a class, we had a private, just a half-hour private lesson every week. Not me, someone else taught him.
Yeah.
And I taught his class. A hard gig, but anyway.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the introductory, the group stuff, the ORF, the tapping, the body percussion, all that kind of stuff. It sounds like it's really, really suited to, and just the group, to the first 2 to 3, maybe 4 years of instruction. And if they continue after that, it sounds like it needs to have an add-on of some private time. Is that a good summary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so.
Yeah. Are there any other negatives that you've found?
Some children are not suited for class lessons. They may have a behaviour issue. There's a possibility that they're on the autism spectrum. Although I've got a couple of autistic kids that I teach. We don't like change very much, but and I listened to the lady that you had on your podcast about teaching autistic kids. It was fantastic information. So if anyone's got autistic kids, listen to that. It's great. And then some.
That was episode 8. If anyone's looking for it, episode 8.
There we go. And then some parents aren't suited for class.
Okay.
They don't really want to do all that, being involved with their children's education, so they just want their child to be in private lessons because it's easy and that's the way it is.
And they don't have to worry about it. Yep.
And I think also occasionally you'll get a parent. This class tuition really suits a great parent-child cooperative relationship. Mm-hmm. I mean, with Paul, in Paul's classes, you have to, as he said, you haven't really got time to do your texting because you're doing too much. You're too busy.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you get a parent and a child who fight, and that's where Paul moves them around so that you can usually sort that one out. But if it's, occasionally, mostly parents are very supportive of their children and just want to be there and be there for help. But if occasionally you'll get a conflicting sort of relationship, doesn't work so well.
I assume you must stream by ability somehow. Is that right?
Sometimes. Generally, most kids drop out because they can't do it. Because they can do it. So it's about moving them ahead. So
while keeping in the same group.
No, they might
moving to a new group.
Moving to another class.
Okay.
So a child who plays really well. But, sometimes you get, I've done this numerous times, but every so often you'll get a child who moves who fails at the higher level because they just need to be the child that's the best.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they don't like not being the best. And then as soon as they're in a situation where they're not the best, they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get that sort of thing. But I do stream regularly for a number of reasons. One, just like in primary school where kids have different kids in the class every year, familiarity breeds contempt. So the longer you have a group of children together, the more together they get against the teacher. So it's always. I remember a couple of years ago I had a class of 8 boys who were 8 and 9 years old doing grade 1 piano. And the moment I would turn my back to go back to the piano or write on the whiteboard or something like that, they'd be fighting on the floor, like little lion cubs. And we go, stop touching each other. So I just had to change them and, move them around. So it's like getting all girls or all boys together. It's good to have a mix of that. Yeah.
I think, in a class you are never going to get 8 children all exactly learning at exactly the same time. You do have to be able to cater for the kids that are going to be able to do it really. And sometimes the pack at the top change. There'll be members of the pack at the top that don't change, and there'll be ones that'll visit. Then you've got the middle lot, and then you've got the kids that don't do it as easily. So there is a point when it starts to marginalise and get too wide. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's like a bell. It's a bell curve. There is a bell curve in every environment. There'll be a couple of good kids, a couple of bad kids, and the most of them will be in the middle. And I find that when you take the good kids out and put them in with other good kids, it rises. It makes the standard actually rise again, because those children have sort of, I suppose, taken a bit of the limelight. But you go and put them with other talented children, then someone else will rise to that position.
And have to shine.
And it makes those kids who are a little bit average go, oh, I could do that, and I could be the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really think streaming is important.
All right, now we've got to finish up because we're almost at the full hour. It's been great. I've got so many more questions I could ask, but it's just the start of the conversation, I think. Does this work for adults? Have you ever done any adult classes?
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
We had piano and wine classes. It was fantastic.
I think
we play a piece of the piano and have a glass of wine, have a sip of wine, play a bit more, have another sip of wine.
Did they get better the more wine that was consumed, Paul?
No. So that was good. I think in our school in Cardiff in Wales, they do coffee keys, which is a keyboard class during the day for mums whose kids are at school. I used to run parents' revenge classes, so keep up with your kids.
What a cool name! Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
some friendly competition. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's great. And look, and just a very quick overview. Does each class tend to have a similar structure? Kind of do some fun singing, dancing, do some scales, do some pieces, or is it all different?
Sure. One thing I would say, that fun singing, dancing stuff is about the education. It's not just fun singing and dancing.
I didn't mean to be flippant.
No, I know. But that's what a lot of people do, and they are flippant about it. But it actually has a process, and it is actually relevant to the teaching process. And so that's why I don't like to make it be flippant, because I think that's the stuff that actually sets you above and makes it successful. So every class that I would teach will have, the first thing they'll do is they'll play something that they know. And the reason that you do that is because it's easy, they can do it.
Yep.
And so
it pulls them in together again.
Brings them all together, yeah.
That's a good tactic for private teaching as well, let's face it. Yeah.
And then I would sing. So we then do oral development. So it might be, we do a lot of singing of lots of different stuff. So we do, in our older courses, we do a lot of opera stuff, or like sort of singing, Salsa me, salsa fare. That sort of Mozart-y type thing. Or,
Yep.
tick, 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 regular, la, 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 do, so. Yeah, and they love that. And we go and watch it on YouTube and stuff like that. And then they will learn an accompaniment. So they would, they'd learn it. And then they have to sing, tick, 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 regular, la, 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 do, so. And then eventually you want them to go, tick, 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 regular, la, 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 do, so. And so they're learning to play and sing. So that's that sort of
skill that is so rarely taught. It's
absolutely
so good.
And they love it.
Great to hear you doing that. Yeah.
And then they would do technique like scales or the technique pieces, and then work on the pieces that they're working on. And then I generally finish with an ensemble, so which will be. May have some improvisation in it, may be percussion instruments, like lots of different varieties of stuff. So we have percussion ensembles and just lots of ensemble. There's some great ensemble books that you can get as well.
And we'll be launching our scale manual in the second half of this year, which got all the accompaniments.
Oh yes, and I know Paul shared them on a few posts, links to what you're doing with those. So backing tracks so kids can play along the scales.
Yeah.
And I think they're free at the moment. The links you've given us, or are they? I can't remember.
You can listen to them, and then if you want to, you can listen to them for a couple of times, but then it'll stop you after a certain number of times.
But it's great to get a feeling for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're great resources. They're a great resource if you want to teach some classes, because you can actually put the backing track on, and then that's where you visit the children and you're looking at them and making sure they're getting it right.
Yeah. And one of the things you were talking about in practicing, with the scales. So I have also recorded a lot of these scales on YouTube. So with me playing the piano, so I listened to your podcast on practice last week. So I'm going, right, parents, go in here. I'll show you what to do. And so we did a whole thing, because I've got an advanced class on Friday afternoon that have all been learning since they were about 2 with me. Yep. And they're 7 and they're doing grade 1 piano. They learn half of the songs, or two out of the 3 songs in the space of 4 weeks. And it's like, oh my God, I've got to keep them going until May. We've got to keep them entertained. Don't practice the scales very much. So I was like, they don't like the scales very much. So I said, you've got to use the flipped learning, which is the blog I wrote for you last week. So they got to practice along, and the scales are medium, fast, then slow. And so I said, once you can do that, then you've got to play them watching my scale video, but you've got to play them in reverse. So that really does your head in, because you've got the scales are going up, but they're going in the opposite direction. Yeah. So it's another way of messing with their brain to reinforce those scales.
Yeah, we'll put a link to that article. It's another great article, and you're sharing these videos so freely. I really do thank you, Paul. It's been such a great resource for all of us. Let's give you a chance. I think you've given all this information away. Give yourself a plug for some of your products and your school, because obviously if teachers are interested in this, you have a ready-made system that works. So tell us about it.
Well, Forte has been going for 22 years this year, and if people want to find out, they can just go to fortemusic.com and press the own button, and there's a video, and they can request information about Forte.
Yep. And it's a franchise system, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people become business owners and they get to use all your resources and they have your support. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're part of the support of the group as well. It's a big,
and they get training and
And we have online training programs for their teachers to help them make it all easy, and
we have a big conference every year. We had our last one in New Zealand last year, where the new school in Howick in Auckland opened, and
the year before we went to UK
in Cardiff. This year we're going to Adelaide. Hopefully next year we might be going to Bangkok. It's very
there you go.
So it's really exciting.
Join a 4-day school and travel the world.
How many schools are there?
We've got 15.
15 around the world.
The majority are in Australia.
Yeah.
moment.
And some in the state, you've got in America as well, haven't you?
No, but we like
it. Oh, there you go. Okay. So those
all your American friends can come and talk to us.
That's it. I've got lots of watchers viewers in America. So there you go. Do you actually sell, can you buy your books if they want to use some of your ideas? Can they do that without being a school owner?
They can use our ideas, they just can't use our books.
Okay.
Yeah.
We only sell the 4-day course material in a 4-day school. So all of our programs
Our Easy Learn. We have our Easy Learn, which is for theory and things like that, which are fun game books about how to learn. Yeah.
So
we'll put our Easy Learn.
Yeah, we'll put some links. So we've got fortemusic.com.au. I've got as your link, Paul, that you gave me. And we'll put a link to that, the actual ownership, if people are interested in that. And then you've also given me a link to the CDs for Bandcamp. Is that right? Yeah. So they're the backing tracks.
They're the backing tracks for Scales.
Great.
And if anyone that listens to this podcast would like, I've got, these are only Australian Music Examination Board at the moment. Mind you, I'm just about to do Trinity because I've just met with Barry a couple of weeks ago for Trinity. Yeah. So I'm looking at doing some of his exams at the moment.
Yeah.
And so I'll be writing the same things for the Trinity exams.
Yeah, so Paul's put together 3 PDF downloads for free, which is fantastic. So if you teach piano for leisure at the AMEB, in the AMEB system, he's actually put together the scale sheet. So it just overviews the technical work with diagrams, and it's fantastic. That's really, really good. Yeah, so we'll put the links to that on the show notes page as well.
Fantastic.
Oh, it's been so good, guys. Was there anything that you wanted to say that we haven't covered, just in summary, because we've got to wrap it up?
Oh, not really. Do class. It's so much fun.
We could just talk all day.
I know.
We've been doing it for so long. We still love it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the other thing I think, like people burn out from one-on-one teaching. I've been teaching like this for 22 years. I love going to work. I love teaching. Yeah. It's so, because every day is different, and every kid in my class, it's just so enjoyable to do. It's just so exciting. I love it.
You finish. It's sort of like it really suits people that got that little bit of performance thing about them. And you finish classes at the end of the day, and it's like, wow. It's like, when you finish a performance, then you need to, you're up on a high.
Yeah. And I think there's an energy that comes from working with groups of people, and I remember that from my classroom teaching. And anytime I do get in front of a group, if I conduct a band at my college, there's an energy that comes from it. It's good fun. If you enjoy doing it, it's definitely worth investigating. Yeah. Well, look, thank you guys so much. It has been brilliant to chat with you, and I look forward to I've got to come up next time I'm in Sydney, Paul. I've got to come and actually see you in action, I think.
No worries. You'll be most welcome.
And thank you, Gillian, for your time today as well.
My pleasure.
All right, guys. We'll speak to you again soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that interview today with Paul and Gillian. It was great fun to record, and I think a fantastic way to kick off Group Teaching Month on the blog. Hopefully you've taken away a number of good tips that you can actually use in your studio today. And maybe if it's something that you'd like to explore further, you can jump on some of Paul's resources and get some more information. Now, last week, if you were listening to the podcast, you would have found out that I'm opening up the Inner Circle membership to you guys, my podcast viewers and my email subscribers, as a first foundation kind of membership group in the next couple of weeks. It's actually happening next week on Wednesday, the 9th of March. So look out for an email from me on that day. If you're listening to this and you don't currently subscribe to my site, then make sure you jump on my homepage, timtopham.com, scroll right down to the bottom, and you can see a spot to join the team. That will allow you to get onto my email list, and you'll be alerted of when the membership opens up. So look out for it next Wednesday. You're going to get all the details, and you're going to be introduced to a special bonus offer launch price. And if you choose to accept that and join the membership, then you'll be grandfathered in at that price forever, even when the price goes up. So it's a great opportunity to get involved in what will become the most amazing community of piano teachers there is. We've already got a number of people in there who are doing some beta testing, and the kind of conversations that are going on and the resources that are being used and shared are phenomenal. So I know you're going to really enjoy getting involved. So that's next Wednesday. Look out for it. And until then, keep keep teaching, keep happy, and I'll see you soon. Bye.